Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thank you for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. Do me a big favor and go to iTunes or Google Play and subscribe to the Startup Sense podcast. That way you never miss an episode. Okay, today's guest is Justin Bailie. He is the co-founder of a company called Rose Rocket, based out of Toronto, Canada. They actually went through Y-Combinator last year, so they've raised some money from that. They've raised some other money from some other angel investors. So they're just under $1 million in total funding right now. They have some early clients, and what they're doing is they're building he'll do a better job of explaining than I will, but it's kind of a collaborative trucking platform. So it's for companies, freight carriers, and private fleets with less than 100 trucks. I guess a better way to kind of organize the shipping and whatnot. But Justin will tell you more about that. Justin, how are you, man?
Good, Jonah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. Hopefully I didn't screw up the description of your business. Why don't you kind of tell us exactly what you guys are doing?
Yeah, no, man, you did a pretty good job. Yeah, we're building cloud-based technology for trucking companies with 100 trucks or less, and just giving them access to levels of technology that currently really aren't available for them for any affordable price. So really helping those guys who have, like I said, less than 100 trucks and getting them onto the cloud, getting them mobile, real-time information, things like that. And again, this just stuff isn't available for them today.
So I know you have a background in trucking and freight and all this stuff. So maybe kind of tell us what you were doing before this and then how that led into this.
Yeah, sure. So I started in this industry working for a fairly large trucking company, and really early days. This goes back about 10 years. Certainly recognized some massive inefficiencies in the industry, especially as it pertained to technology. I mean, I was working for a company probably doing about $8 billion a year in sales, and still working on sort of AS400 platforms and lots of pen and paper, ribbon printers. And so, really you could see that there was a long way to go, especially from a back office perspective of how they're running their business, very human resource intensive. And also in a business that, trucking is super, super low margin. So these guys are struggling to make cash, but you can see so much bloat in the human resource and the paperwork and the administrative area. So started tweaking my interest. And then over the years, I ended up owning a freight brokerage business, after that, and again, just working with thousands of carriers, quite frankly, saw a real common challenge around the technology they had. Again, they're struggling to make any money, but they're paying a lot of human beings to do a lot of manual and redundant work. So one thing leads to another, and a decade later, here I am trying to solve those problems.
Yeah, a couple months ago when I relaunched the podcast, I interviewed the founder of a company called Shippo, and she told me how many freight carriers there were out there, and I was shocked at how many, because we all know the big ones, the FedExes, the UPSs, etc. But there are hundreds or thousands of more local and regional freight carriers too, right?
Yeah, there's actually 2 million of them in the United States registered. Yeah,
that's crazy. Wow. Okay, so talk to us about when you started the company, how you started it, how you found your co-founders, how you guys got into Y-Combinator, and then how things are going since then.
Yeah, sure. So we've going back. We've worked on a couple projects prior to this before, and this problem was something we started looking at probably about a year ago in January of 2016, quite seriously. So we went ahead and started working with some early customers just to get some ideas on what they thought in terms of our business idea and how it would resonate if it was something that they would buy. So to answer the question about how I met my co-founders, it was really just an introduction through some advisors, a little bit of serendipity, a little bit of asking questions at the right time. Just I needed a technical co-founder. I'm more from the business and the domain expertise side. And again, you ask around, you ask the right people that you trust, and the universe certainly delivered in that area. So again, we did that. We met several years ago, worked on some other things prior to this, got going with Rose Rocket in earnest about a year ago. And from there, we just started doing what you're supposed to do. We came up with a small concept, a minimum viable idea, really, moved that into a minimum viable product, pushed it onto some trucking companies to get their feedback. This is very much pre-revenue or pre any kind of product that would
right.
ever gain that. And then, going into the summer, we applied to Y-Combinator. I don't even remember doing the application, quite frankly. We had never applied before. They liked the sound of what we were doing, and we went down and did they do these 15-minute interviews with you prior to see if they essentially like the look at your face and that you're not a dick. And then asking some questions that are relatively, on point, and I think obviously we answered them okay. And then we got in, and from there it's been really effective. It obviously allowed us to raise some enough money to kind of hire and get a little more serious with the product. We did make some minor product pivots throughout YC and even since then, because you have to continue to refine, and we're pushing out to the market, and the market's either rejecting it or loving it, and we're twisting and turning with kind of each feedback loop, and here we are now. So we're now in market. We have some paying customers, just really starting to get into a minimum sellable product state. But man, it's still a long way to go.
Do you remember any of the specific questions that they asked in that YC interview?
The one thing they do really, really right off the bat, I think everybody they do it for is it's first questions are, what do you do? And as simple as that sounds, I challenge anybody who's listening to this to answer that question really concisely, right, in that your grandmother could understand what that is. So it's, what do you do? And you answer that concisely, hopefully. And then it's, how are you going to do that? And again, can you answer that in 3 sentences? That was really as much as the rest of the questions were, how big is the market? What do you know about this market? How did you guys meet? Again, real just sort of, testing around sort of the viability of ourselves as humans. But the actual idea on the business is, what do you do and how are you going to do that? And, give that to me in sort of 4 to 6 sentences. That was tough, man.
So that obviously went well. You got into Y-Combinator, which is about 3 months, right?
That's right.
And then you guys pitched a demo day.
Correct.
Did you guys? I know you've raised some money. More than 500,000, less than $1 million. Right. Was it from some of the investors that were at the demo day?
Yeah, it was pretty much exclusively from that. We had a few. So I mean, when I sort of speak of that raise, that's sort of a specific YC raise. And in that's how much money we raised while we were there. And I'm just kind of thinking here quickly, but I think mostly everyone was from that demo day.
Okay, cool. So your company is how big right now? How many people?
I'm sort of looking at the other side now. We have 6, and then we have a guy who comes into some contract work. So we're sort of 6.5, I guess. And
you guys are mostly technical engineering type people?
Pretty much all, yeah. There's the guy in the half guy is doing some growth hacking. I hate that term, but I guess it's essentially what it is. So doing some quote unquote growth hacking for us part time, and then I'm doing the sales side of it. And right now it's technical. This is a very big product, so it does require it's a system of records. Essentially, companies run their businesses on our product. It's very
you can't screw it up. Basically,
you can, man. As much as the MVP for this has to be much more advanced than it would be for again a product that might sit tertiary to other products in your stack. This is the stack, so
right.
It has to be fairly well baked.
I did an interview last week with a guy. They're building a new banking and financial investment platform. Like, you can't really do an MVP when you're dealing with that industry. Yesterday I interviewed the founder of Lemonade for the, they're building like an AI platform for the insurance industry. Yeah. You can't really build an MVP because you got to get through all the regulations. So, and in your case, successful businesses are running their business through your platform. So you got
that's it. Yeah, man. And and I will say this too. I really envy the businesses that can truly build an MVP sort of through a land and expand model. So even if you're in the B2B space, the enterprise space, and you have a piece of software that fits really nicely inside the stack and integrates cleanly because you have a really good API or good strategy on how to get in there. I got a lot of love for businesses like this. I often wonder if this wasn't biting off a bit more than we could chew some days when we're trying to sell a system of records. So I definitely like the idea of being able to go in without disrupting an entire company. And to have your product at least stress tested a little bit.
So now that you guys are thinking about growth marketing or growth hacking, does that mean you've essentially found your product market fit and now you're ready to start to grow?
Yeah, no, not yet. We're definitely pre product market fit. We've had some businesses in the past, and I think one of the mistakes we've made is, product market fit is there is a lot of red herrings that will suggest you have product market fit. And I think as a founder, you want that so bad that anything that kind of looks like you're like, fuck, we've got it, right? We got product market fit. So you're all over it and you want to jump on it, but we're being very prescriptive and you're going to really make sure we've got product market fit. And I think we're quite seriously, we're probably, we're 6 to 10 months away from having a really good idea if we're there yet. So we're trying some stuff in terms of inbound marketing and lead gen. Top of funnel has always been very difficult for us. So we're really just trying tactics on how to get the top of funnel full right now. that's really the strategy for us. But product market fit, no, not yet.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co. How do you guys think you are going to get to get people into the top of the funnel?
Yeah, right now, we're really still looking for innovators. So for us, I think the way in which if I look at who our current customers are and where they've come from, referrals, for early days of a startup will always be your starting point. They have to be. So we already have sort of a decent, that's most of our customers today are friends of friends, essentially, or people we know in the industry, part of my network. I think that some paid acquisition will certainly help our cause, although I think we're going to have to go to channels that aren't currently being utilized. I think doing straight up SEO in Google or in LinkedIn, for instance, will be very expensive and will get very much drowned out. So we have some ideas around some PR and maybe some less popular channels that would find our customers. Our customers today, from a persona perspective, are much younger buyers. They are, most people probably don't even know these guys exist, but 35-year-old owners of trucking companies. We're definitely looking for a younger breed, a millennial, essentially in this space. So we're thinking about, and we're starting to now go to areas where those types of buyers might be hanging out. So we're actually going to look at some very non-traditional mediums as far as our space is concerned. Anyways, you're not going to see a lot of trucking software is being advertised on Facebook, as an example. So we may try some of that. Also, channels for us is going to be very important, both technical and otherwise. So these are probably areas we spend a lot of energy on today.
Is it safe to assume that 65-year-old guy that owns a trucking company, they've been doing everything with pads of paper and Excel spreadsheets for the last 30 years, is less likely to switch over to something like Rose Rocket?
Yeah, absolutely. They're not our customer. They're it's kind of that stretch from guys didn't go from carrier pigeon to email. They had to have phones and faxes and email. So we don't expect them to take that type of leap. But we're asking people who are coming into the industry or have been here for a while, but they're younger, and they look at the technology that was all built 30 years ago and saying there has to be something better, more modern, more aligned with what I'm used to using, and our product would definitely fit that requirement.
Right. I mean, look at Uber, right? I mean, they were able to disrupt the taxi cab industry because there was only two ways to really get taxi cabs, and that was either to call them, to call the number, so you had to have it in your phone saved already, or you just happen to flag them down on the street.
Right. So, and they gave an alternative to people who wanted something different, but there's still people who are calling taxis today and always will. And that's a good analogy for us, is that we're not going to try and convert the guy who's calling the taxi today, but the guy who wants a better way. We think we have that better way.
So what's been since you guys started this company, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
Probably having a product that is I go back to because we don't have the privilege in a lot of ways of having an MVP and a company that can run their business on it and test it. It's really making sure that the product is, I think on macro, the answer is product. And when I say product, I mean having a product that people take, use, and don't feel like, well, if it just had this one more thing, then we would buy it. If it just had these two other things, then I would refer to my friend. So getting to a place where we're not overbuilding based on sort of early customers, and just having a product that we can say, no, this is minimum sellable product. This is the way it is. Take it the way it is. If you like it, great. If you don't, then we're going to have to find somebody else. So I think really being comfortable in our own skin around what our minimum sellable product is. I think we've been pushed around a little bit by our early customers for fear of losing them. It's a bit of a scarcity mentality. I think a lot of startups go through, and we've struggled with that as well.
So let's say, 5 years from now, you guys, you're kicking ass. Things are going great. You've obviously the product, you nailed it. You got a ton of customers, creating revenue. You've raised more money. Looking back, how much did your prior experience in this industry, do you think, played a part in that success?
Yeah, I think it's been critical. I think it's one of those industries that's extremely counterintuitive. So really, really smart people don't do well in this industry. So you kind of have to be a little dumb because you can't use a lot of logic. So I think I've been able to skip over a lot of the things that don't academically make sense because I know that's just kind of the way it is. So certainly that's helped a lot. I think at times, what's been fortunate for us is my co-founders don't have experience in trucking. So it's a healthy mix of this is the way other industries are doing it. And so I think we've been very fortunate in that we have a blend of both. So I think it's absolutely helped us a lot. I've seen many companies fail in this space, and a lot of the times those companies, these are guys who are really smart, dudes or girls, but they don't have the domain expertise. And I think that just really does help, especially early days. I think as we get bigger and bigger, that becomes a little less important though.
Yeah, because there's definitely those founders that jump into industries where they see an opportunity, but they really don't know anything about the industry and they have to learn from scratch. And then other guys like you that spent 10 years in industry and kind of know what the problems are, identify it, and then go try to solve it.
It's one of these things that I look at. I cringe when I hear this, and I see this in a lot of other industries too. When you get, really, again, academically smart guys coming out and they look at industries like trucking and they say, "Oh, I can't believe they're doing it that way. They're so stupid." Or they're so, they're so like dumb that they've been running this that way for 100 years. Well, transportation is like the second largest industry in North America. Like you're talking trillions of dollars a year in sales. Like it's not possible that you can be dumb at large and make it this way. It may not be what you're used to from an intelligence perspective. These may be guys who have dropped out of high school and built billion-dollar companies. They're just doing it differently. But I think there is still, and I see it, and it really makes me cringe seeing. I think underestimating people in general or industries in general, I think is a critical error that I see a lot of young founders making.
So do you think once you guys, kind of find the product market fit and you go out there and start acquiring customers, who do you think is going to be the ideal customer? Is it going to be the private fleet that we kind of talked about in our pre-call, which is maybe the seafood delivery business or the home heating oil delivery business? Or is it the more, the freight carriers that are getting paid to carry someone's freight from A to B?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's sort of not to sort of skip the question, but it's both in that where the opportunity lies for us down the road is allowing the private fleet carrier to access the public freight market. So without getting too deep into sort of future product plans and where our business eventually goes, but by having the freight online and by us being able to have access to that capacity, we can start sharing the freight back and forth between the companies. And one thing we do know in the private fleet network is that these guys are often going out and delivering, to their stores every single day. So Safeway goes out and delivers to a bunch of stores. Well, they have an empty truck now that they have to move back from their furthest store back to their distribution center. If they could very seamlessly and easily find freight to put onto that truck, that could really serve a lot of purposes for all markets. And the trucking company who maybe doesn't want to move that freight because they're already full, but they don't want to say no to another order, can give that to Safeway. We really see that as sort of the apex and the holy grail of our business and where this goes. So it's really merging them together and actually homogenizing the two businesses and making private and for hire fleets very much on the back end. You wouldn't see this as a consumer, but behind the scenes, we see those as those companies as much more similar in the future than they are today.
Gotcha. Okay. The money you guys have raised right now, was that going to take you 9 months, 15 months? What do you think before you guys have to raise more money?
We're probably thinking about doing another fundraise. I think this, second quarter, I think would be probably where we're at. We're starting to talk about it and plan it now. We have some metrics that we want to get to and some things that we want to prove out before we get there. We need to understand, how much we're going to raise and what type of round we're looking at as well. So we're just starting to have the conversations now, but, without committing to it, I would think second quarter seems logical at this point.
And how strategic were you in terms of the investors you brought on board? I mean, did you already have a pretty good idea of where this company needs to go? So you're just looking for any check, or did you really want investors that can add value in one way or another?
It's nice to say that you look for value-added investors, and certainly we were fortunate to have a few value-added investors. But dude, when you're trying to raise that first bit of money, take whatever you can get. And I mean, as long as it's not predatory money, and it's on the terms that, in predatory money being that they're not on your terms essentially. But if they're on the terms in the safe note that YC provides you with, which is an extremely founder-friendly term sheet, you'll take the money, man. I mean, you really will. I just I don't know what at this stage when you're sort of pre-Series A. I don't know what strategic money would be. Like, I don't know. So it's just.
Right. I mean, I guess unless it's some angel investor that built their own shipping logistics business. I mean, outside of that, right? It's just a check is a check.
Yeah, exactly. And those guys typically aren't in those circles. So when you're raising money in Silicon Valley, you're not necessarily dealing with guys who've done it before. These are professional investors, ex-Google employees, these types of guys. Right. So that's more the type of money you're looking for. And yeah, again, if you can get strategic money, wonderful. But money in general is just strategic by nature. So that's all we needed. So yeah, that's we weren't that picky, to be quite frank. But we were lucky. The people invested were really good guys.
You're dealing with a lot of blue collar type businesses, or I guess you will be in the near future. What's it like building a business in Canada? Did you guys go back to Toronto after YC?
Yeah, we did. We love it. We're, Toronto is, Canada maybe wouldn't, as a whole is obviously a big country. So building a business here in certain areas would be debilitating. But doing it in Toronto is pretty amazing. We sell to American customers. We raise American money. So, we're able to take our money and we get about 30 cents on the dollar more because of the exchange rate. So that was a huge, plus for us. The, Canadian environment, the government does some really great things as far as supporting R&D and giving huge tax credits back against your development spend. Somewhere up into 35 to 50% of your total development spend can actually come back to you in a check, actually.
Wow.
So there's opportunities such as that. And Toronto is we have access to extraordinary development talent through, University of Waterloo and University of Toronto, which are probably two of the best development schools in the world as far as, putting out engineers and for AI and machine learning and data science. So we're very, very fortunate to have access to that kind of human capital. And it's a big city. Toronto has about 8 million people in the greater Toronto area. I think it's the third or fourth largest, metropolitan area in North America. So Toronto's a great place to live. It's a great place to run a business. You can sell into the US very easily. So it was really a no-brainer for us to come back here. So we do eventually see some expansion into the US to help us with our sales initiatives, and especially as the sales force becomes a little more distributed. But that doesn't have to happen today. And we're definitely not hindered by being in Toronto in any which way, shape, or form.
Is it hard raising? And I mean, I've heard it is, but I'll let you answer. Is it hard raising capital in Toronto?
Oh yeah, I mean that's maybe the sort of other side of the equation. It is, but we've never really looked for it here, and I think we've always inherently known that to get sort of those, it's not hard. Canadians are very risk averse, so the investment community is a reflection of that as well. So if you've done it before and you're a second time founder and and your first company was an exit, then you'll be able to raise money anywhere in the world. But Toronto is very conservative, and finding those $1 million seed rounds, if you will, in Toronto is really, really difficult. So we've always known that we were going to have to do our raise in the Valley, and we were okay with that. And so our next round of funding could be easier here, but quite frankly, we have no ambition of doing it here. We will continue to raise money in the Bay Area, and I think that's ultimately where all our money will come from for the duration of our business.
Do you guys think you'll be able to remain an independent company, or do you think that once you have the platform built and you start to get some traction, that you guys will be a nice takeover candidate?
I mean, I think we are a nice takeover candidate. I think the type of space that we're in this is a space that right now is seen. I'm talking about trucking specifically, is seeing a tremendous amount of M&A. It's very much like the airline industry in the 80s. You're going to see probably about 10 uber large companies in trucking, in the 20 years from now. It's just going to be huge companies buying up everybody. So there's a bit of that going on. So I suspect we could get caught in that hurricane of M&A. This also could be a great standalone business where we start making some strategic acquisitions too. So, too early to tell at this point. We're obviously open to anything as long as it means, growth and continual, as long as we have the ability to continue to make a difference and make an impact, then we're open to anything.
So over the last year or so, since you guys have been working on this, what if you go back and kind of do one thing differently? What's one mistake that that I guess you guys have made that had to fix? Because you did mention you made a couple pivots. So what were what did you have to pivot away from?
Yeah, we probably would have gone if I would have gone bigger in terms of our ambition. We probably started originally when we first built the product. We were going to build it just for freight brokers because it was a smaller product. We knew how to do that. But it wasn't overly ambitious. It didn't have a quote unquote $1 billion market opportunity to it. It was just a safe play. And then we went too wide. Then we said, let's just build a product for all trucking. And it was just too big and too unfocused. So if I could go back, I would have said, pick a vertical and a niche that really needs it and focus like crazy on that. And again, I think it's classic advice you get all the time, but just do one thing really, really well. And I think that's probably where we could have saved ourselves, a good 4 or 5 months, I think, just by being super focused on one vertical of a vertical. And that's probably what I would have done. And we found our way there now, but it's taken us, a long time. We probably wasted a lot of code, to get here.
So, I mean, since you guys have raised money, you don't have to be quite as conservative as, you were pre-raise. But I mean, even with some money in the bank, you don't know when the next money's coming. You don't know how long it's going to take to find product market fit. How careful are you with your kind of monthly burn, and how do you think about growth versus burn, I guess, and keeping cash in the bank?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a great question, and I don't know how to kind of answer it in like how careful are we? We're pretty careful. I mean, we have to hire to continue to build the product in order to make the sales. So for us, we just look at it and say, okay, what do we reverse engineer and say, okay, when are we out of money? How much revenue do we need to make sure that doesn't happen? And what are the things that we can do to prolong that? So for instance, when we're selling licenses right now, we're getting paid up front for those for the year. So that allows us to, and they're decently priced licenses. So they allow us to add, months and months. But yeah, I mean, we're in a place where we still look at our burn rate and we say, how much money do we have to get till when? So we have money to get to December. We sell a couple more licenses. Okay, we have money to get to February. We sell, it's kind of we sort of keep pushing it out that way. So I wouldn't want to say we're being overly conservative with it. We certainly are being cautious with it, and we're responsible, I think, with our money. But we are also really focusing on revenue, and I think revenue solves all. So we may not have product market fit, but we can we can sell this to some people that don't need it to have product market fit, because if we're focusing on the right customers who are your innovators, then they'll pay for not baked products. So a lot of it comes down to just managing expectations with the customers, letting them understand that they're getting early access to the latest and greatest product. It may not be done, but it'll be something that can really improve their business, and they can give us input that'll allow them to have some level of customization to the product anyways. As long as we're selling under those premises, then we should be able to make enough revenue to carry us through that. So if it takes us 6 months longer to raise money than we thought, then we don't see that as being a problem. But I guess the whole point here is that if the only way to sustain your business is through fundraising and fundraising only, that's not a place I'd want to be in again.
Have you, or I guess I'll ask this: what is the pricing for the product? And are you guys gonna have any standard pricing, or is it really all custom?
Yes, no. It started. I mean, it was what are you willing to pay? But now it's we're kind of getting there where we're finding that it's 150 per seat, and we're selling 10 seat minimums. So it starts at $1,500 per month for the product, and typically we're selling to companies that might have 10 to 50 users inside the organization. So that's tends to be what our sort of first customers are.
Okay, cool. And then I guess kind of a couple last questions here. And you might have covered this. I just kind of forget what the answer was. What exactly are these companies using now? And then why is Rose Rocket going to be a better option for them?
Yeah, so they're using, there's other products out there, but they're using typically products that have been built sort of 20 years ago that are very much glorified Excel sheets is what they essentially look like. Yep. Our product today is, again, a lot of them are on-premise still too. So, or they are using Excel and pen and paper. So what we offer, again, is a single, cloud-based application that's completely end-to-end. So it has a customer portable. Customers can go on and manage their own freight and give you orders and get pricing and these types of things, which really isn't available in most of the products today. We have dispatching and planning. A lot of it is automated. So we've got some autonomous, AI that's working and doing a lot of the work for you. We have a mobile app that's inherent to the product, which is very unique. So when you dispatch a load to your driver, it goes directly to his phone. And when he marks it as delivered, it updates it in the system automatically. These traditionally are built through APIs through a third party who would be providing the app. So it gets difficult again for small companies to be doing integrations and things like that. It has an invoicing component to it. It has pricing. It has driver management. So it is really truly an all-in-one application that again traditionally is made up of 2 or 3 different divergent products. Half of them on-prem, half of them not working, and they just never integrate properly. So it's a full system right out of the box. You can be up and running on our product tomorrow, and some very quick integration times too. Just again, a much more modern approach to managing your business than really is currently available off the shelf today.
Who's the next person you'll hire? What what type of person? What position?
Oh, to answer your ask, I'm on the sales side, so that's going to be my answer. I think from my hire is going to be a generalist salesperson that can really handle it all. Somebody who's got some transportation experience and can really probably pick up the slack on the product has been integrated into the company. Make sure that they're I'm basically describing a success person, but probably somebody who gets involved even a little bit earlier in the sales cycle. So it's really a hybrid success product sales engineer type role. I think on the other side, we're probably looking for some more senior development help. We certainly need to get a little bit stronger in our data science area. So probably looking at some data scientists pretty soon to help build out some of our AI and machine learning algorithms. So I would think that's probably if I could pick dev and in sales, those would be the two, one from each side.
Cool. Last question, I guess, for you then would be, if you were to sit down with someone and they asked you, what advice you could kind of give them for starting a company. I know it's a very broad question, but what are the one or two things that you think are critical to success?
Yeah, I think it's it's two answers that are kind of counterpoint to each other. So one would be, this is very, very cliche, but so friggin' true. Like, fail fast. So recognize what you're doing. Understand that it's when it's not a good idea, or listen to others and these types of things, and just be humble enough and open-minded enough to understand that a lot of times the ideas that we come up with are just really the beginning of something else, and what you end up doing later from a business idea or product or whatever that may be is so far removed from what you started doing, but that first step was critical to actually opening sort of the door to the path that you're ultimately going down. So that would be sort of one piece of advice is just be mindful and humble and willing to pivot or stop or fail or whatever you want to call it. And then counter to that, I would say keep going, in that once you get to that point of you feel that you're on the right path and you have enough validating points and you've decided to go, you've made that commitment. And the ones who make it, simply put, are the ones that last. I think you just keep going and you just keep going and you just keep going, and it feels brutal and it's a slog and you don't think you're going to make it, and it's one step forward and 7 steps back. But you will get there. And if you look around at people who have had tremendous success, if you really look closely, these have been super long, painful processes 99% of the time. And that's the ones who last, man. It's you just keep going. And I think that will ultimately, you will succeed if you just keep going. So those sort of two very counterintuitive points to each other, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that advice. I appreciate it. Couple of rapid fire questions, I guess. If you could be mentored by anyone, who would it be?
Tony Robbins.
Have you ever met him?
I know. I want to.
Have you been to any of his big conferences?
I haven't. He's like my idol without him even knowing it. But no, I've never even been in his.
They're crazy. I mean, I think they're pretty expensive. And nowadays, it's like you can get all that same content online, YouTube, whatever it is.
But you know what? Though, nothing beats a visceral experience with someone like him in the room. I'd pay the money. I just haven't had the time or the wherewithal.
2017 goal, right?
Yeah, exactly. It really is actually Date with Destiny in December. It actually is.
And what is your favorite kind of software as a service product that you like to use on a daily basis?
What software as a service product do I use on a daily basis? Probably right now it's HubSpot for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you guys use that at like the CRM or the inbound marketing?
Yeah,
tool,
mostly CRM. We're starting to screw around with the marketing component of it. So yeah, just really digging that. I know there's other stuff out there. There's probably more hip, but we've spent some time with this, and they do such a nice job with content. I almost feel like I'm compelled to give back to them just because of how much they've given to me over the years from really quality content.
Yeah, they do an amazing job.
Oh,
I've known Brian and Dharmesh for many, many years, so they've built quite a juggernaut out of Boston for sure.
No kidding.
And then last question, do you have a favorite blog that you like to read?
I read Seth Godin's blog almost every day. Short, concise, to the point. I love it's borderline poetic and kind of dark, and it's right up my alley. So no, that's definitely the one that I go to every day.
Awesome. We'll end it there, man. What's the best way that we can connect with you and learn more about the company?
Yeah, you can just check me out on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active. Justin Bailie, Bailie. And if you want to check out the company, it's roserocket.com. And yeah, man, that's where we're at.
Awesome. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes so people can find you easily. I want to thank you for being a guest, man. Really appreciate it. I know it's still kind of early in the life cycle for Rose Rocket, but it sounds like you guys are on your way to something big. I want to wish you the best.
Brother, thanks for having me.
You got it, man. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.